Big Safety Podcast with Vance and Bart.
It's a trap. There's no comfort fitting in a fake safety that no one believes in.
So with all of the lockdowns and mandates, I see other people trying to get into this country.
Mm-hmm.
Are you following that at all? The green cards? Basically, the government isn't giving out enough green cards.
Yeah, I mean, I followed it. I guess secondhand. I worked next to another crane operator, a couple jobs back, and he's from Mexico, but he's a licensed crane operator. He's been working here legally, and he was up for, I guess, a renewal or something, and his attorney had done all the stuff just like he's supposed to, and it's just been pending for nobody's doing anything about it. He's not got his, so now he's can't be a crane operator. He's working under the table waiting on somebody to get off their ass and do what they're supposed to do. I imagine that has something to do with what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's basically just this delay that I don't think anybody in the government was expecting to happen, but they were not able to process nearly as many as they essentially guaranteed that they would.
Mhm.
So there's this movement now to like sue the government
Mhm.
because the government said, "Oh, we'll make sure to process this many, guaranteed." It's like we'll process 1 million green cards this year or your money back. And I guess a bunch of people are asking for their money back.
Right.
Um,
I can take a shit in a box and guarantee it.
that's kind of what they did. I'm curious to see how that turns out, but I don't really see a ton of positive outcome when you sue the people who make the laws.
I mean, let's say you win. What are they going to do? They'll just pay you in the money they take from you when you pay your taxes. Then they'll change the law and tighten down on that power that they had to where you won't be able to get them again or make them look bad again, and basically make it where they can give the green cards out or not, and you can't do anything about it, period. And you'll have legitimized their authority to do so just by suing them, saying, "But you said you would give us this many." Or, I mean, if you're going to sue them for anything, like, you should be suing them for claiming that they have the right to even give them out or not give them out, period.
I wouldn't reasonably sue for a vaccine passport because it's not constitutional and I want a vaccine passport, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, "Oh, well, you can't just because I didn't get the 8th jab doesn't mean you can't get the vaccine passport. You should still give it to me," right? Like,
Mhm.
you're asking for the wrong thing.
Or I got the jab and I'm waiting on my card to go to the grocery store and you haven't given it to me yet. I'm not going to sue you over that. It's stupid, right?
Right. I don't want the passport in the first place.
Right. I don't want. Yeah, I mean, I have so much, like, with the vaccine itself, putting in on that, I could honestly say that there will be a day, or there may be a day where I go, I think I want it. right? But with the passport that comes along with it, I know there will never be a day that I want that. The vaccine card. I'll never want that. So, which means can't get the jab, but that's not saying that I don't want to have counterfeit ones. I love the idea of counterfeiting the shit out of those things. In fact, I want to get a tailgate vinyl for the back of my truck that says vaccine cards sold here, just across my tailgate.
Do you think that will get you pulled over more often?
I mean, I don't know. Like, what are they going to come question me about it? Because I mean, it's not a legal document. It's as much a business card as anything.
That's what I'm curious about. Is it's not in any way certified by any centralized, because
Yeah,
I know I'm talking to you and a bunch of other folks who don't recognize any governing body of any kind. But let's for a second just assume that the state is something that we have all agreed is our sort of centralized issuing authority for documentation.
ugh.
I know.
It's icky, man. All right, let's pretend like we're statists.
Even then, there is no seal, there is no stamp, there is no security feature. There
was never a law passed.
There's no barcode that's representative of any number that would be tied to you as a unique identifier.
There is with the apps. There's a barcode.
But with the card.
With the card, there isn't, but with the apps, there are, which is also a cool thing that people are doing. There's I don't know what they're called. There's something like mirror app or shadow app or something where it looks and acts like the legit app that they can scan or sends out a GPS to their app to let them know that you're good, but it's not the actual government app. It's people are already doing that.
Are you going to sell that out of your tailgate as well?
I would love to. I'm not actually going to sell vaccine cards. I just like the idea of letting people know, any idiot with a truck can print one up, in a printer. You know what I mean? Just driving around with that on the back of my truck, wearing a construction shirt, driving home from work. People are like, dude, is that guy just if he's openly advertising, he'll sell them to people. I could just print one up and I don't have to worry about it.
But then you're also tipping off the folks who would enforce that by saying, oh, well, now these are no longer valid. Right? Aren't you?
Yeah, but they were never valid.
Aren't you throwing your fellow agorists in front of the bus?
I think making it a joke is better because it needs to be easy enough that everybody's doing it, because that's how agorism works. Is everybody's breaking the rules so much so that nobody cares to even hide it anymore.
Right. And I think that's why I'm trying to figure out where is the critical mass where they don't want to hide it anymore, because
see, that's an emotional state, because it could be a lot less than it could be a lot more or a lot less. It depends on how you approach it. If you can approach it just in your face, but nonchalant, not I'm in your face and like, people are protesting up at the the courthouse or something like that. I'm talking about just like, yeah, I'm homeschooling my kids. Like you go out and you go to say you go to a city hall or something and you're talking, back when homeschooling was illegal, you would just be like, I think that this park should be here. I homeschool my kids and I would love to be able to take them, like just saying it.
Ah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
The more and more you do that, the more and more it becomes something they can't fight, even if there's not as many people doing it. You know what I mean?
Should we fight the state with the state by trying to get them to regulate pricing on ink for printers?
Regulates.
Well, we should say that printer ink is inflated and is too high, and the government should subsidize printer ink so that we can all print our own Vax cards.
Yeah, I mean that would work if it wasn't for supply and demand, and then people would just stop making ink because there wasn't money in it, and we wouldn't have any ink. But
Well, no, if they subsidized it, right? Like if the government's paying for the ink.
oh, I got you.
But yeah, we should. It's like cars. It's cash for clunkers. It's
Yeah, that was a terrible thing too. It
it's
like took all
invoices
the
for
old
ink.
cars off the roads and poor people had to walk. That was like really shitty thing for somebody to do.
When you say somebody,
Yeah.
yeah, who did that? I forget.
I'm not naming names.
For the record, you have no vaccine cards available.
Oh, I don't, because I don't have the right paper right now. I got to go to Staples.
I love that. That's the. It's not like counterfeiting money where you're like, well, I don't have the right paper. I would have to get in here, here, and here and get this. You're like, I don't have the right paper. I have to go to Staples. The big box store that has myriad locations across the nation.
That's right. Maybe I'll do I won't be on YouTube, but I could do it on Odyssey, where I could do a DIY vaccine card show.
I don't follow the news enough to know this, but someone has to have gotten in some kind of predicament that was newsworthy where they have made their own Vax card, right? Like, is there a meme yet of someone who's made just a horribly bad print of a Vax card?
I mean, I would think that in most circumstances it would have to be so bad because, sorry. In most circumstances, it would have to be really bad because if you think about it, the business, it's required to ask for the card, right? So they can just claim because it just has to be good enough that they can be like, oh, I thought it was legit.
Right. They have to have plausible deniability, right? Like, because they don't actually care as a business owner.
Right.
It's like alcohol sales, where they're like, as long as I look at an ID, I can say that I did what I was supposed to. It's people don't actually care that you're 21 in the US or 18 wherever. They don't care. They just want to make sure that they've done the thing that prevents them from getting in trouble.
Right. So when that little narc or whatever comes through, or informant comes through, and they can do their part, and then they don't get in trouble. But who cares, right? I mean, I'm sure there's a Karen out there that might check and be like, I don't think this one's legit. Like,
I would love.
Then you just act ridiculous. You're like, excuse me, and like, I'm not one of those stupid MAGA hat wearing motherfuckers that wouldn't get jabbed, and you just make a scene. And then she's like, oh shit, this guy's more liberal than me. And then when you take it back and you just like, you can walk off.
Right. Do you
Off on her, sneeze on her when you leave. Like,
do you wear a Biden shirt when you raise these concerns?
right? What's those comedy shirts with like, or it's like the ninja face here? Or just like a Biden, like a bumper sticker. Just be poof. Yeah.
I like the idea of going to a store every day with a slightly worse vax card. Like one day you print up one that's like really dark blue ink.
Yeah.
And then the next day you keep the really dark blue ink if it worked the day before, but then change the text to Comic Sans. And then on the third day, you print it on just off-white paper that's kind of got a blue tint to it, and you just slowly have the ink and the paper color merge to where it's just one card.
Yeah.
Blue.
Yeah.
Like how many days do you go until someone's just like, look, man, I can't do this anymore?
Or like you print it on the back of like a credit card piece of mail, like offering you a credit card.
Like
just cut it out.
Oh no. Okay. Here's what I encourage everyone to do. Go to your local bookseller and go to the periodical section and pull out the mailer card that has the return mail card where you subscribe to that periodical and use that as your Vax card.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know what you should do? Since the Heritage Institute, who gives out pocket constitutions all the time, is also cool with the mandate, you should print it on the back of a constitution. That would be great. The little pocket constitutions.
I think you should print it on a t-shirt and just wear it everywhere.
This is it. Oh shit, yeah. Oh, that'd be so funny.
Do you think they would let illegal immigrants into grocery stores if they had the Vax t-shirt, but they didn't have their green card?
Yeah, I do. I hope so.
Because
Karen might not, but now if they act ridiculous about it and act more, left than Karen, then or whatever, I'm sure that she would change her tune.
Well, we talked about this when I think the New York announcement came through, but legal and illegal immigrants are both harmed.
Yeah.
By a huge margin.
Yeah.
With the mandates and the passports and all of that, because documentation is clearly not their strong suit.
Right.
Even people who are legally here, right? Like even people who are trying to get through with visa statuses and people who are legally here have, all these challenges around documentation, and we're going to now, keep them out of grocery stores. Like voter ID laws are racist, but grocery store ID laws,
and make sure they can't have a job. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, how many things are going to get in the way of the immigrant getting a job? Well, this is supposed to be the land of opportunity. If a private citizen, now I get it, government jobs shouldn't exist, and government should not be giving jobs to people who aren't paying taxes. I get it. I get that totally. but and they damn sure they really shouldn't be giving them to anybody. But like, you know what I mean? At least people have paying taxes, or at least given some. You know what I mean? Not that illegals don't pay taxes because they have to pay taxes when if they've got the fake documents, they get them the government job, they're going to have to pay taxes on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the taxes go in either way. But honestly, like even if we take the illegal piece out of it, let's use the same argument that everyone makes about voter ID, which is that it's racist. Well, 60% of Black people in New York are not vaccinated. So that means 60% of Black people in New York are not going to be able to go to the grocery store.
Right. Is that because they're too dumb to get?
Is that racist?
They're too dumb to get the vaccine. Too, Miss
Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, that bitch.
Yeah, is she too dumb to get a vax passport?
I think she might be.
But like I say, it doesn't even have to be about illegals or undocumented. It's even people in our own nation. If you want to talk about the racial divide, which everyone loves right now, so why are we not talking about that? I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest, but
yeah, I'm not either, man. It's like
I feel like they're just much more.
I was taught that we weren't supposed to like that shit didn't matter. It was just the character of the person you were. You know what I mean? Like,
to me, it's more just about how boring it is. I feel like there are so many more interesting ways to get infighting going. Skin color? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and then I don't have to get to know anybody or even talk to anybody or discuss ideas. I just know that you're Black. That means you do these things. It's a pretty terrible way of judging stuff, but I mean, that's what critical race theory teaches. So,
and when we talk about the critical race theory, are we talking about what the critical race theory actually is, or what it's become in the last 6
no,
cycles?
I'm like not what the news says that critical race theory is, but what the actual what critical race theory is. Because I don't know, I don't watch the news enough to really like. I know they spin it to be like the right spins it to be like it's just teaching you like something stupid. I don't know, but I know they're not getting it right. And the left spins it like, oh, it's just to just give hope and empower the minority groups and stuff like that. But what it really is it was written by a bunch of attorneys, lawyers that were using abstract law type thought processes to come up with like a ranking system for the oppression that you've had as a oppressed group or the oppressive nature of you because of the skin color, your sex, and your orientation or whatever. Like all these things factor in. The sex and stuff didn't factor in it at the beginning, but they amended it later, and had added other things like, becoming a trans person that gives you a ranking. And basically, I, as a bald, blonde, blue-eyed white man that's straight, I don't have any social ranking. I'm in the negative because I've been an oppressor. So like things should be taken from me.
Well, that's application though, right? Like that is when you start putting that into practice, because critical race theory, a name in name, it is a theory. It's supposed to be an academic exercise, right? It's supposed to be a lens through which you are able to look through history and see things that, let's say, weren't necessarily meant to be racist or sexist or whatever, but because they were created without taking those things into account, they unknowingly or unintentionally put minority or marginalized groups at a disadvantage without it being explicitly stated. And as an academic practice, I think anything that's a critical lens is generally pretty good, because I'm the first one to say why and rethink and ask questions and not assume that we have all the information that we need. But when you take that into practice, the people who have taken that and applied it poorly are really the ones at fault here. Because I see
but
the
even,
same thing.
Even at the historic, like when you used it, like the whatever project, the 6, 7, whatever that project was, where she used that critical, what that was written about critical race theory, like the whole theory or whatever. She used it to look at the past, and she came up with all this bogus BS, but like she had to make stuff up for it to work. You know what I mean? Like change history in her paper for it to work. Just make false. So like,
I'm not entirely sure who you're talking about. So maybe
we'll have to do another show on it, but like we can break down that whole project, like where she looked at American history. I mean, it's already been debunked by countless historians, but for a while it was like the left was using it as like a stepping off point. So they look, this is we're talking about systemic racism that started America. If it wasn't for the slaves, we wouldn't be here. The slaves are the reason we're where we are. So everything you have is because of, and you have to give it or whatever. You know what I mean? And it turned out it was just a bunch of BS. But so, yes, I agree that when you should look, if somebody has an idea and you look at history, it requires you to look back at history in this idea to see if it holds water or whatever. But when it doesn't hold water, you don't just make history different to make it hold water. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the same could be true of any theory that's poorly applied, right? Like I could say the same thing about Christianity or any religion, right? The religion itself is probably not the problem so much as the people who take things literally and apply them to their life and start wars in the name of God. The application is the problem, not the theory itself.
I disagree with that. I mean, I think that a theory is fine, but like when it's proven to not, it's not the case. Like it doesn't work here. It didn't happen here. So the theory is false. Like it doesn't mean that it didn't happen somewhere else. You can't still use whatever framework you've designed in this theory to look in other aspects of history and see if it happened there. But if it didn't happen here, like you can't apply it here.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That's what I'm saying. I think the theory is not the issue, and I think that's why we're having two debates over it. Is that the theory isn't the problem? It's that people are trying to apply it where it doesn't belong, and where they have to, like you said, they have to make things up just to make it fit. It's square peg in a round hole.
You got to also understand that the theory was designed to apply here. Like it was purposely done to apply here. It may not apply anywhere in history. In fact, I would bet that it doesn't.
No,
It-
I mean it's in its it's broad enough to where it would apply in a lot of places, right? Like we're not going to sit here and say that laws don't put different minority groups at a disadvantage.
But that's not what the critical race theory papers talk about. Critical race theory means that there's systemic in the theory. Like, because I'm white, like certain types of people, colors of people, races of people, religions of people, certain ones like white people cannot, no matter what, cannot be not racist. Like all white people who aren't gay or whatever, like we can't help. There's nothing we can do. We will always be racist. It's in the theory. It says that.
See, I don't think it says that. We're because I think
it does say that. I mean, like that's a big part of it.
I think that's how people are applying it. I think that's how.
Well, where did you read yours? I mean, where did you read otherwise? I mean, because like I'm just saying, like the guys who wrote it up, those attorneys, that's what it. I mean, that's what they were. It's a point system.
I agree with that to some degree. I mean
I mean, we can't change what it was. Like they're the ones who made it, came up with theory. Like we can't sit here and say like,
well, the
it's
theory
different
isn't
than what they came up with, right?
Well, I'm not trying to say that their intentions weren't. I'm not going to try and say like what their intentions were, but
Okay.
the theory itself only talks about how races are treated throughout history, and it's a framework for looking at history.
But you have to look at it through a point system where and it explicitly points out like that we can't, like the white male cannot not be racist. I mean, it's written in there.
I don't think that's like that conclusion isn't written in there. Like
Okay.
the points that you're talking about, I would say that's written in there, right? The idea that you're at a, because let's simplify it. Let's take all of those kind of things out of it and just talk about like height or something, right?
Okay.
So let's say there's a world of 10 people, and 8 of them are 10 feet tall, and 2 of them are 2 feet tall.
Okay.
And you have a cabinet, like a shelf, that is where everybody gets their daily ration of money, and it's 10 feet off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
All of the people who wrote those laws and made that shelf and rationed the money, they were all people who were 10 feet tall. And they weren't necessarily doing it with malice. They weren't doing it because they were heightist. I'm not really sure what that would be. It's just they were creating something that they think was fair. And for a person who's 2 feet tall, it's like, oh, well, yeah, you think that that's equally distributed, but because of the fact that I'm 2 feet tall, the 80% of society has an easier time reaching their daily ration of money every day. So we're disadvantaged simply because we're short. And the idea of these critical theories is accepting, yes, nowhere in the law does it say you have to be tall, and nowhere in the law does it say we should punish short people. But the overall outcome is these unintended consequences of if you're
That's the
short,
systemic racism part of it. That's like this little section, but like there's a lot more to that theory than that.
I think there are a lot more conclusions drawn from that theory than that.
No,
Like
no,
I say,
no. Like the framework of, no, like I'm not talking about what systemic racism is as a definition. I'm talking about critical race theory, what they're trying to teach to the kids, written by the guys who came up with it. This wasn't just, I mean, that was one of the smallest little pieces of it, is what systemic racism in like the way that, like how we apply it, but it comes up with why white people don't know that they're doing it. They can't help it. It's in our genes. Like there's a lot to, it's not just a small little, it's not like I wrote a hypothesis on a fucking board. Like it was a big article, a big paper. Like this team came up with this and talked about, delivered for years to come up with this at whatever college they were probably doing it at, right? I don't even remember which one, but I didn't know what it was for the longest time. I just knew it was like everything that people were saying and then claiming they were getting it from that. It was a bunch of BS bullshit. So like, I was like, I bet I'm against that. I didn't know how much I was against it until I read a lot of the papers on it written by these guys. And it's not that. I mean, there's a little bit of that in there, but like it's really, it's a categorism. It's how to categorize people by their color and how, I mean, it's
You're talking
without
about
saying this is
intersectionality.
evil and this is not evil. It's basically by the way they look, these type of people are evil and these type of people aren't evil, is pretty much what they're getting at. And there's a lot of writing about how to get there in the theory.
Intersectionality, right?
Yeah.
The idea that you can be multiple minority classes and you can add them up and all that sort of thing. So maybe this kind of cuts to the core of why we have such a hard time talking about critical race theory and anything else as a nation, because anyone who is against critical race theory says that they're against a certain thing, but the people who are defending it are not necessarily defending critical race theory as much as they are claiming that someone who's against it is denying systemic racism. Mm-hmm. And I would venture a guess to say that
most people don't know what it is. That's why it's so scary that people are arguing on whether to teach it in our schools. If both sides who are arguing about it don't know what it is, then they really, really shouldn't be teaching it in our schools until somebody actually sits down. The parents sit down, figure out what the fuck and it should be up to every. I honestly think it's a dangerous, stupid theory. I mean, there's just not any logic to it at all. And I've given it a good once over from a critical, I was looking at it like there's got to be something more to it, because everything I was hearing mainstream news about it. Like, I'm like, it, it it's definitely not this. This is too elementary. It's stupid, right? And then I read about it and I'm like, oh, this isn't elementary. This is that it's a like an offshoot of Marxism, basically, is what you can tell. Like, instead of like the working class, it's like a class system for how you'd set up a communist nation, basically, not using like your worker levels. It's like a victimized leveling for how you set up your communist nation. But I'm like, wow, this is not stupid evil. This is very smart evil. This is playing on somebody's emotions and then like playing on so almost everybody can find a little victim thing, and it making sure that the evil, the Jew, is a small enough group, you know what I mean, that they can gang up on. So like, you can't just say like all white people are, you know what I mean? Because the group doesn't get small enough that you can gang up on them and, you know, blame all the problems that, because when you become a communist nation, you start having a lot of problems. So you have to have a group to blame the problems on. It's 101. Go to any government, you know, government theory college to learn how to be a ruler, and you'll learn about it, right? So like, and they found, because the white people, there are a lot of people in the U.S. So like, how are we going to make the white person? Well, we can't make all white people. So like, this is really thought out how they figured out how to, you know, bring all these victimhoods in to make sure that they could still have a Jew to burn, right? And to, you know, not give vax cards to, put us in the in the ghettos and shit, right? But that's what it was. I mean, the more and more you read it, the more and more you could see like exactly what they were trying to do. So when we talk to people who say critical race theory is good, I think instead of saying you're stupid, you should say you're uninformed about this. Or if you are informed about this, you're evil. Like, one, I don't know how else to say it. Like, it's not something that is there's not really a gray area on that. Like, fascism, you know, or fascism isn't really necessarily the bad thing about Germany. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's worried about fascism. I am too. I mean, governments getting together with big corporations to make sure that like people are marginalized, you know, like vaccine cards. It's a bad thing. Like, the worst part about Nazi Germany was the people they blame the problems on getting put in concentration camps and getting gassed and killed, all to show like a solidarity that like, we're not going to let these bad things happen to you, even though, you know, it wasn't the Jews' fault it was happening, but people are looking for somebody to blame it on. So it's dangerous. So I don't know how else to. The fact that I'm a white man in the most evil person in critical race theory ranking, right, doesn't give me a lot of credibility when I try to tell people like, this isn't. I hope this isn't what you. I hope you don't think it is, that this is what it is. You know what I mean? I hope you're uninformed about it, because this is a really bad thing. So, I don't know. I don't think that most people really get into reading about it or what. I mean, I didn't really want to. It's being shoved in my face so much. I was like, got to read something about it. And I still wish I didn't. I mean, it's sickening to read. It's not a pleasant read. None of it is, or a listen to, like a little lectures and stuff I listen to about people, putting it forward and whatnot. It's awful to listen to, but I did it. I'll never do it again. I hope.
Isn't that a good reminder, though, that when we are debating some of these things that are fairly complex, that we lay things out beforehand? Because the point you're making about if someone comes up and starts defending that, you would believe that they're either evil if they understand it or not if they don't. Isn't it worth just making sure you
I think it is. I think it is. And I think that's purposely that's why it's represented on, even like by your right mainstream news will misrepresent the defense of it, and the left news will misrepresent the defense of it, or
the attack on it.
Yeah. So, and what they'll do is they'll make sure that the arguments don't even work together. That way these people are talking past each other because they want that. And they don't want an honest discussion because without the honest discussion, the government can just do whatever it wants to do. Because the defense on either side doesn't hold water. So it doesn't matter, right? So you can discredit either side, no matter what the government wants to do.
So if I'm an immigrant and I don't have my green card yet and I'm suing the government, wouldn't that mean that I should have enough of those minority points that they would care enough about me to put me into the queue?
I mean, I guess if it's a critical race believer or something, or like the new age Nazi up in there. Yeah. Yeah.
So as an immigrant, I should be glad that I'm not jumping to the front of the line, because that means people at the border are not Nazis.
Depending on who's in charge at whatever time, he's the evil guy or whatever, then yeah, the further you're away from the place of power, the more powerful you should be later, if you're not white. Because you got to go look at your color first, because like that's the first thing with that.
It's the easiest to notice.
Yeah.
Visually.
But in no ranking is character. But that works because the guys gassing the Jews didn't have a lot of character.